Yo, yo, what's going on, famo? It's your boy, man, back with another video. Man, just want to give all thanks and praise first and foremost to the Most High, for the opportunity to come through and build with y'all. You know what I'm saying? The reason with the fam one more time, and continuing in the motion that I'm flowing in, that I feel like the Most High is pulling me in. You know what I'm saying? Because you know what I'm saying. Regardless of what, you know what I'm saying, anybody got to say, you know, we want to make sure we getting the babies out before we let somebody kill something before it come to life. Because you know how our people is, man. Any route to salvation, you know what I'm saying, that we have, that come before us, we kill it. You feel what I'm saying? Like the Bible say, you kill your prophets, man. Anytime somebody coming bearing some good news or anything like that for us to move forward in a better direction, we be quick to kill it. So, you know what I'm saying, we just want to make sure, you know, we suck something dry. We extracted what we needed to out of, you know what I'm saying, whatever it is that we digging into before we just kill something, before we crucify something. You feel what I'm saying? So, you know what I'm saying, I'm going to be pretty straightforward with this video. You know what I'm saying, we're going to get into it. We're going to get into ecclesiastical law because I feel like this is something very important, especially when you're dealing with Exodus, freedom, liberty. You feel what I'm saying? Ecclesiastical law is something that plays a very important part, that ecclesiastical power. So we're going to get into that, and we're going to see how that has anything to do with us, as always, fam. So, you know what I'm saying, further ado, let's go ahead and dig. Okay, ecclesiastical law, you know what I'm saying? So, ecclesiastical law is canon law. So, before we do that, you know, let's get a little bit of etymology on the word. Late 15th century, from Middle French ecclesiastique, however you want to say it, and directly from late Latin ecclesiasticus. Now that's important because we're going to, as you can see the title, I'm sure we're going to dig on that. You know what I'm saying? From Greek ecclesiastikos, of the ancient Athenian assembly, in late Greek of the church. Okay, from ecclesiastes, speaker in an assembly or church, preacher. Alright, keep all that in mind right there. Pretty sure we're gonna come back to it. You know, from ekkalin, to call out, kalin, to call, see, claim, as a noun, one holding office in Christian ministry. Okay, this is very important. Alright, 1650s. It also was used in the noun late Latin. Alright, so we're going to dig a little bit on claim. It says see claim. Alright, circa 1300, to call out, to ask, demand by virtue of right or authority. Alright, from accented stem of Old French claimer, to call, name, describe, claim. Alright, complain, declare. Alright, to cry out, shout, proclaim. Okay, proclaim. Alright, you know, call out, call, noise, bang, to call out, to low, make noise like a cow. Okay, alright, claim, claim. Alright, meaning to maintain as true, to make a claim. Alright, so you see what it is, you know what I'm saying? We're gonna dig on that canon law, ecclesiastical law. So what it says is, say, canon law is the body of laws and regulations made by ecclesiastical authority, church leadership, for the government, okay, for the government of a Christian organization or church and its members. Okay, it is the internal ecclesiastical law or operational policy governing the Catholic Church. Okay, the Eastern Orthodox and the Oriental Orthodox churches, and the individual national churches within the angelic communion. That way that such church law is legislated, interpreted at times, adjudicated, varies widely among these three bodies of churches. In all three traditions, a canon was originally a rule adopted by a church council. These canons formed the foundation of canon law. Okay, So dig on this, okay? Etymology, canon. Alright, canon, straight, a rule, code, standard, measure. The root meaning in all these languages is reed. Okay, that's important. A cane. Alright. Alright, so okay, as we see up here, we see it says a body of laws and regulations made by ecclesiastical authority. Alright, so let's dig into that, which is ecclesiastical jurisdiction. Ecclesiastical jurisdiction in its primary sense does not signify jurisdiction over ecclesiastic church leadership, okay? But jurisdiction expressed by church leaders over other leaders and over the laity. Okay, so understand what that's saying, right? This is talking about religious governance that is exercised, right, by church leaders or officials or people who hold office. We're gonna get into that, right? And they are over laity. All right, so we're gonna see what that means. Let's catch this right here. Jurisdiction is the word borrowed from the legal system, which has acquired a wide extension in theology. Okay, wherein, for example, it is frequently used in contradistinction to order to express the right to administer sacraments as something added onto the power to celebrate them. Okay, so it is used to express the territorial or other limits of ecclesiastical, executive, or legislative authority. Here it is used by the authority by which judicial officers, important, investigate and decide cases under canon law. Okay, such authority reminds of lay Roman lawyers who first used this word. Jurisdiction was essentially temporal in its origin and its sphere, right? The Christian church, the Christian church transferred the notion to the spiritual domain as part of the general idea of a kingdom of God, right? One nation under God, right? This is expressing what? Ecclesiastical jurisdiction or ecclesiastical law. Okay, they try to separate the state or government from religious matters, but is that really true? We're gonna dig into that. You know what I'm saying? Focusing on the spiritual side of man on earth, right? We know that. Okay, understand, like manifest destiny. Okay, they came over here, right, with this New Testament in hand and all that kind of stuff, preaching and using that as a right to take the land, because we were called pagans and Saracens, and we wouldn't, you know what I'm saying, bow to the Trinity and stuff like that. So that ecclesiastical jurisdiction or that religious authority gave them that right, you know what I'm saying, to establish government and governance on somebody else's territory, right? So just, you know what I'm saying, just keep that in mind, you know what I'm saying. It was viewed as also ordained of God, who had dominion over his temporal estate, okay? As the church in the earliest ages had executive and legislative power in its own spiritual sphere. Alright, so now when we jump back up here, where it's talking about ecclesiastical jurisdiction, it says that that the jurisdiction expressed by church leaders over the laity. Let's dig into the laity, understand what the laity is. A laity is a lay person, a layman or lay woman, is a person who is not qualified in a given profession and or does not have specific knowledge of a certain subject. Okay? In religious organization, the laity consists of all members who are not members of the clergy. Okay? Usually including the non-ordained members of the religious institute. Okay? So you know what I'm saying? You're seeing what the term is kind of relating to, or referring to. Okay, etymology, the word laity means common people. Right? So you know what we're dealing with, right? When they're saying that ecclesiastical jurisdiction is being expressed over the laity by these church members or those who do what? Right? Officers people who hold judicial offices and decide cases under canon law, right? Which is a body of laws or regulations made by ecclesiastical authority, right? Church leadership. Okay. All right. So, looking up ecclesiastical law, which takes you to canon law. You get on the C also, you get this religious laws. We're gonna dig into that a little bit. And hold on one second, fam. Alright, religious law refers to the ethical or moral codes taught by religious traditions, right? Examples include Christian canon law, Islamic Sharia, Jewish halakha, and Hindu law, right? The two most prominent systems, canon law and Sharia, differ from other religious laws in that canon law is the codification of the Catholic, Angelical, Orthodox law as in civil law, right? Okay. While Sharia derives many of its laws from juristic precedent and reasoning by analogy, as in common law tradition. Okay. Okay, a state religion or established church is a religious body officially endorsed by the state. Okay, a theocracy. Another link. A theocracy is a form of government in which a god or deity is represented as the supreme civil ruler. Okay, that's the drop. So, you know what I'm saying? Let's go over here to theocracy. Okay, theocracy is a form of government in which a deity is the source from which all authority derives. Okay, the Oxford English Dictionary has the definition: a form of government in which God or a deity is recognized as the king or immediate ruler, as his laws are taken as the statute book of the kingdom. Uh-oh. What? It say as king or immediate ruler, his laws are taken as the statute book of the kingdom. These laws being usually administered by a priestly order as his ministers and agents, hence loosely a system of government by a sacerdotal order, claiming divine commission, also a state so governed. Okay, and an ecclesiocracy. Okay, now, bam. An ecclesiocracy is a situation where the religious leaders assume the leading role in the state, but do not claim that they are instruments of divine revelation. For example, the Prince Bishop, right, is what Pope of the European Middle Ages, where the bishop was also the temporal ruler. Such a state used the administrative hierarchy of the religion of its own administration, or it may have two arms, administrators and clergy, okay, but with the state administrative hierarchy subordinate to the religious hierarchy. Okay, the papacy, right, you know this talking about, in the papal states, occupied in the middle ground between theocracy and ecclesiocracy. They occupy middle ground between theocracy and ecclesiocracy, since the Pope did not claim he was a prophet who received revelation from God, translated it into civil law, right? So they're dealing with ecclesiocracy, right? Dealing with ecclesiastical law and ecclesiastical jurisdiction. Okay, and now we're talking about, we're just putting this into perspective because we're in America, right? And we know that a group of people came over here, right, using Christianity and a religion to establish their government. Now, like I say, they say that they separated the two, the government and the religion, but is that truly the truth? You feel me? Are they occupying this land based upon ecclesiastical law? And if so, then what does that mean for us? If that, you know what I'm saying? If they're establishing dominion and law and their rulership as whites on this land based upon what? The statute book of the kingdom, and if it's a Christian nation, would that be the Bible? You feel what I'm saying? Christian or Catholic, however you want to look at it, would that be the Bible? And then if that Bible calls us white Autochthons, cedars of Lebanon, you feel what I'm saying? Then what does that mean based upon ecclesiastical law? So, you know, just keep rocking with me. We're just building. Okay, so we're going to go on down. Okay, we're just going to touch on this, right, for a little bit. Let me say in the synopsis. In some religions, the ruler, usually a king, was regarded as the chosen favorite of God or gods, who could not be questioned, right? Sometimes even being the descendant of or a god in their own right. Today, there is also a form of government where clerics have the power and the supreme leader could not be questioned in action. From the perspective of the theocratic government, God himself is recognized as the head of the state. Okay, one nation under God. Alright, hence the term theocracy from Koine Greek, rule of God. Right? So, right, basically, essentially what this ecclesiastical law is dealing with, right, is dealing with a rulership under God. A religious authority. Okay, a term used by Josephus for the kingdom of Judah and Israel. Taken literally or strictly, theocracy means rule of God or gods, and refers primarily to the internal rule of the heart, okay, especially in its biblical application. Okay, alright, the common generic use of the term as defined above in terms of rule by a church or analogous, whatever, religious leadership, would be more accurately described as in what? My bad. Let's see where we was at. It would be what? More accurately described as ecclesiocracy. Okay? So now let me jump over here to this article real quick that I had not found. It states American government and Christianity. Alright. Okay, so it says America's Christian roots. The founding of this country, as well as the framing of the key political documents, rest upon a Christian foundation. That doesn't necessarily mean that the United States is a Christian nation, although some framers use that term. But it does not mean that the foundations of this republic presuppose a Christian view of human nature or God's providence. Alright. Okay, so in the previous, we discussed the Christian roots of the Declaration and Constitution. Okay, so we're going to jump down. Really, I just want to get these quotes, right? Okay, say first, what was the perspective of the founding of the founders of America? Consider some of the famous quotes. John Adams was the second president of the United States. He saw the need for religious values to provide the moral line for society. He stated in a letter to the officers of the 1st Brigade of the 3rd Division of the Militia of Massachusetts. In a quote, he said, "We have no government armed with power capable of contending with human passions unbridled by morality and religion." Okay? He say, "Avarice, ambition, revenge, gallantry would break the strongest cords of our Constitution as a well goes through a net. Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to govern any other." Now that's very important, especially when we're understanding ecclesiastical law and ecclesiastic cuss. We're going to hit on that later. But what he's saying is what? Our Constitution, right, our government and our set of rules and rights was only made for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to government any other, right? That's important. Okay, so we say, in fact, John Adams wasn't the only founding father to talk about the importance of religious values. Consider this statement from George Washington during his farewell address. He said, and let us with caution indulge the supposition that morality can be maintained without religion. Okay. Whatever may be conceded to the influence of refined education on the minds of peculiar structure, reason, and experience both forbid us to expect that national morality can prevail in exclusion of religious principles. So he basically saying that your first so-called president or their president, you know what I'm saying, is saying that we can't even establish a government of morality and rights without having some type of inclusion of religious principles or matter, right? This dude up here, the second one who came after him, said, "What? Our Constitution is only made for the moral and the religious people. It is wholly inadequate to government any other, right?" So they're basically, you know what I'm saying, building their foundation of governance upon this ecclesiastical law or ecclesiastical claim, if you will. Alright, so what we're going to do, man, we're going to get into this clip right here, man. Listen, I advise all you brothers and sisters to go check this out. It is so much drop in this video. I feel like, you know what I'm saying, like you know, you already know what you got to do. You got to eat the meat, spit out the bones, whatnot, take the babies out the bath water, but it's a lot of babies in the bath water, I feel like, and there's a lot of meat on them bones. You know what I'm saying? This is it's called Roman canon law versus natural law. Franco Collins interview, man. I just typed in ecclesiastical law and I was able to find it. It was like third or fourth video, I think. But I'm gonna put the link in the description, man. Man, catch this video. It's a lot of drop, man. It gets straight to the point. Like, he getting straight to the point, man. And you know what I'm saying. And the whole video is full of that drop. So you know what I'm saying. I'm gonna drop this on you and we're gonna dig into it. Let's go.
What is the connection between organized religions such as the Vatican, which we've heard over the years has been so intertwined with the Bank of England and the money and on all of that, and the Rothschild? What is the tie-in with that, and what our relationship is now and to government, and how we can free ourselves from maybe some ties that we have with this entity called the government?
That's a good introductory question, actually, Patrick. I guess the first thing is to understand the ecclesiastical nature of the government and the concept of office that they like to play down, and yet the symbols are overwhelming. So what you'll get is you'll often get people talk in a reasonable way, saying, look, there is no religion in government, it's purely secular, and all this talk about ecclesiastical is all kind of hocus pocus. But let me explain then. The way the government has been formed in States and in Canada, Australia, and in many Western countries now, the constitutions make clear that the state is separated from the church. But what they don't tell you is that things like, for example, an office. What is an office? When someone holds an office, it actually means they are holding ecclesiastical, and by ecclesiastical I mean religious, things like, for example, an office. What is an office? When someone holds an office, it actually means they are holding ecclesiastical, and by ecclesiastical I mean religious, an ecclesiastical position. Because the origin of an office back into the days of Rome, that you held a religious space. That is, you held your custody over a temple or a chapel or a chamber or some sanctuary. And that is the origin of the meaning of an office. And in fact, if you don't hold custody over a temple or a chapel or a chamber or some circumscribed sanctuary, then you actually technically don't hold an office.
If you technically, if
so
you don't literally,
even in
if
the
you
simplest,
don't, if you don't literally,
yeah, far away.
Yeah, if you don't literally hold it or possess it, you don't really have the office. In other words, if you're just not sitting there, for example, in the White House, you don't really have the White House.
Absolutely. And in fact, unless you're invested, which is the religious ceremony, unless you're invested into the office, then you don't hold office. So it means from the county sheriff to the district attorney, to the mayor, to the governor, right up to the president, each and every one of those positions is a religious ecclesiastical position by definition.
How can it be a religious ecclesiastical position if the founding fathers and other they meant to keep religion and politics separate, didn't they? And don't they put that in the Constitution?
Well, yes, they wanted to separate the church, but the concepts and the constructs are still religious. So, for example, there's a famous letter of the delegates returning from the convention in Paris, the signing of the treaty in Paris at the end of the 18th century, where they're actually described as ministers plenipotentiary. Now, a minister is a religious title, and a plenipotentiary is very much a religious title. And when one views the Vatican, for example, the role of notary is an ecclesiastical role. The apostolic proto-notaries come from the Vatican. The ministers come from the Vatican. So what the founding fathers were saying is, we don't want the church to be sitting there as the executive or the apparatus, but if one wishes to govern with any kind of mandate from the divine, then the office, the position of office, as opposed to just being a tyrant, means that we are evoking ecclesiastical powers.
Who's evoking ecclesiastical powers? The people or the politicians?
The politicians.
They're evoking ecclesiastical powers because? Because
when they're invested into office, they are saying, not only do I have a mandate from the people, but when I order your home to be taken, or eminent domain to take your home, or take the taxes, I am doing so with not just your mandate, but as a representative of the divine. And so I have both the authority of God and the authority to have a mandate from the people, but when I order your home to be taken, or eminent domain to take your home, or take the taxes, I am doing so with not just your mandate, but as a representative of the divine. And so I have both the authority of God and the authority of the people.
Much like King Henry, and we see all these great old movies where back then the kings evoked the idea that they were chosen by God.
Yes.
Is that right?
It's exactly the same. And there is a reason why they need the authority of the divine and not just the mandate of the people, because of the nature of what property itself is. You see, we're taught and image trained in our society through the media to believe that property is the car, property is the home, it is the fridge, it is the clothes. It's not. That's not property. You can't actually physically own anything. There's no law in physics that says you or I can own each other. I can use the fridge, I can use the car, I can use the home, but I can't actually own it.
Mm-hmm.
And much smarter people than you and I years and years and years ago understood this and understood that the only thing in the universe that can own anything is the divine. All we can do years ago understood this and understood that the only thing in the universe that can own anything is the divine. All we can do is sell and buy and convey rights of use. And that's exactly what Henry VIII created and promoted in his changes of statutes, was rights of uses. So property then, being right of use, is derived when a group claimed to be the agents of the divine, comes from the top down. So technically, the conveyance and management of property cannot be conducted in a Christian model, in a Western model, in a Roman model, unless it is done through an office. In other words, unless it's done through an ecclesiastical position. And this is the bedrock of Western law.
So let's see if I understand what you just said, Frank, that unless we, souls and bodies today, maybe in Texas or Oklahoma or California, would understand this ecclesiastical idea of an office and rights of use, we are then just visitors on our land and can be put off whenever somebody else wants us to leave, and there would be a way to evoke this. We're using this and we have our connection with the divine, so you can't move us?
Absolutely. These mechanics are things that are both used against us and can be used as a strength. And it's why when you begin down this road, there are a number of groups very, very quick to laugh and belittle and deride this. But let's add to the proof of this, because the proof is overwhelming. Let's talk about the instrument that is used to convey property. Now, when I want to convey property, I don't use a normal contract. I need to use a deed. Yes?
Uh-huh.
Now, what makes a deed so special, and why does a deed need to be notarized or needs to be witnessed by someone in an office, in an ecclesiastical office, such as a notary?
I don't know that.
If property is something that ultimately comes from the divine, and then everything cascades from rights of use down, doesn't it make sense that any movement of that property is itself a sacred act, an ecclesiastical act?
If we take the premise that the divine is the only true ownership of everything, and we're just using it, so if we're going to use it for a while with a deed, purchase it, then it is a divine act. Is that what you're saying?
And that's the secret of deeds that they don't want you to know.
That's the secret, because we don't know that they're a divine act when we sign this paper or whatever. Okay. So take us forward.
It's why when people want to reclaim their property and they make a claim of right, that document, unless it is written correctly and in this knowledge, may not be ecclesiastical. So it is not a true deed. And if it's not a true deed, the system will not recognise it. Well, they won't recognise it normally if you try and do it outside of, but they will argue ultimately that it's not valid. They won't tell you why it's not valid, but it's not valid because it is not an ecclesiastical instrument.
Who will tell you it's not valid? In other words,
the cleric.
Oh, in other words, the one that we sign and we didn't know that it was a divine instrument, they say that it's not valid because it's not valid.
Correct.
Huh. And so we could learn how to maybe do a correct one or ecclesiastical one.
Well, this is the central issue. Our ignorance of the origin of the office, our ignorance of the origin and nature of property, our ignorance in the origin of the law and the private law of the private bar guild, of the private courts, all works against us, because that ignorance means that if we ever face a court, firstly, we don't even know what the word court means. We're told that it comes from the word cohort, or an outside space, as opposed to the word courtio, C-A-U-T-I-O, which means something totally different. It means to bond, to bail, and to trade in surety. It's an exchange. If we are ignorant, then the only person in a court that really knows what's going on is going to be the judge. And therefore, we will be, if we challenge, we will very quickly be discovered as incompetent. And that's exactly what they want us to be. They want us to remain incompetent in law.
If we challenge the judge who's really in charge of the court, or if we challenge another person?
If we challenge any aspect of the process, the charge, the fact that they're going to assign our home to a bank or our car to a...
Okay, so I hope you was able to, really catch on to what, he was dropping on us, even though they're talking about, even though they Gentile, talking about sovereignty and freedom, and they're talking about foreclosure and a lot of things like that, but they're not really touching on the foreclosure as much. But understand something, you feel what I'm saying, what he's saying, right? These people have set themselves up in ecclesiastical power, from an ecclesiastical claim, you know what I'm saying, from a religious government, right? Because the whole definition or meaning behind office is a divine service, right? Is a religious act, right? So understand something. They have set their government up based upon ecclesiastical claim, right? So now understand that what that got to do with you. Because like I say, if the Bible is that structure in which they're doing it upon, that Bible didn't cause you what? White top chons, right? AKA citizens of Lebanon, right? You're the ones who sprang out of Adam from the ground, right? You're the trees, right? So now understand something. Why do you think, right? We've been building on a area of artifacts, right? Why do you think your folks and your fam, right, went up and put gold in mountains, right? To substantiate your ecclesiastical claim to do what? Unite as a tribe, right? Let's dig on that just for a second.
Well, let's talk lost treasure in America. Internationally, it's been said that the king of the Aztecs, King Montezuma, had his warriors hide his jewels in the United States. And get this, some treasure hunters actually believe it's here in southern Utah. Good for Utah's Tasmin Mafous went to see if there really is gold in them there hills. Historians say that the richest cache of gold is hidden right here in southern Utah, and that's buried deep within these caverns. Now, hundreds of people have explored land and water to find it, but still, to this day, no one has gotten close to Montezuma's treasure. Legends say that during the 16th century, 8,000 Aztec men carried King Montezuma's gold from Mexico City to the U.S.
It was to protect it from the Spanish conquistadors.
Montezuma's treasure someplace in North America.
Some believe it's in Kanab, Utah, and that it's hidden right here at the Three Lakes Pond.
Archaeologists believe that the Aztec thought of this as their actual homeland.
It's said that the Aztecs may have used a clever strategy called a water trap to hide their precious jewels. The trap requires digging 35 feet deep under the water and then building a tunnel that would lead inside this cavern.
And create a room that would have been higher than the water level. So they drain the lake out and they go back in and build this cavern, put the gold back in there, and then they fill the water back up.
Then historians say the Aztecs killed each other on the spot so that their spirits could protect the gold.
The ones who deposited the gold here, that their spirits are still here.
There is curses, this is cursed.
Blondchild's family has owned this pond for 30 years. His father bought the property for $1,500 after suspecting the gold may have been there. And since then, they've tried to look for the treasure.
Every time there's been an attempt, there's been bad things that have happened.
He said treasure hunters have spent more than $100,000 worth of equipment to dive into the lake. But strange situations would stop them.
All of a sudden, the divers started screaming, "I'm being choked out, I'm seeing ghosts, I'm seeing ghosts."
And that's not all that happened. Some have even lost their lives.
People have died. We had a well driller that died.
Child says in 1998, his father hired a well driller to attempt another way in. They drilled a 4-inch hole on top of the cavern, and when they pulled it up, it had gold flakes on top of the drill. So they wanted to try again with a bigger drill.
He went home that night and had a heart attack and died, and 3 weeks later his wife died.
At one point, his family even tried to drain the lake, but were stopped by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Apparently, an endangered species called the amber snail lived on the property, and if they killed even one snail, Child's family would face a major fine of $25,000 for every snail.
It's only found.
Okay, now, with all that being said, let's just build on something, okay? We've been looking at this area, right, this Four Corners area, right? And the original objective on being in the area and looking towards the area was to do what? To explore, right? To dig for these, or to look and go out and search for our ancestors' artifacts, right? Because guess what else is it? The Bible tells us what? Moses is buried in Moab, right? At Mount Nebo. Then according to 2 Maccabees, the Ark of the Covenant is in Mount Nebo. Jeremiah took it. Okay, some say there's no need for the Ark of the Covenant no more, but there might be. You feel what I'm saying? So you got these artifacts over here now. You know what I'm saying? You, right, as a sovereign indigenous person, have the right to self-governance, right, through ecclesiastical law, because that's the same system, right, that's currently governing you, right? So now what has to happen is they have to respect your ecclesiastical claim, right, to sovereignty and divine rulership and governance through Mosaic law, right, and under the commandment of the Most High, right, to govern yourself as a tribe. They have to now respect that claim. You know what I'm saying? And of course, now check this out. Let's just take a look at our previous exodus, our ancestors' exodus, right? And let's just analyze some things, right? Now, okay, Moses, right? Notice how the children of Israel didn't get let go until a political sovereign voice spoke up and said, let them go. You see what I'm saying? Which was Moses, right? Moses was classified in the status of a sovereign royal Egyptian, right? And it was his political voice that was able to go in front of Pharaoh and say, let me go, right? Based upon this ecclesiastical claim to power, that we have the right to rule ourselves, with God, right? That's what ecclesiastical means, right? With God, right? Under this Mosaic covenant or under divine rulership because he has chosen us, right? So now, bam, right? So Pharaoh, right? He himself his government is set up based upon ecclesiastical law and ecclesiastical claims to power because he is what? Pharaoh means what? It means great house, but it also means God king. He claims to be a direct descendant of what? The gods, right? That's an ecclesiastical or theocracy, right? Ecclesiocracy or theocracy. You feel what I'm saying? But that's a divine right of self-ruling governments through a religious law. You feel what I'm saying? So Pharaoh, now being established under ecclesiastical law, has to respect Moses's claim of ecclesiastical power and his claim for to be free of bondage, you know what I'm saying, for self-government, right? But he doesn't want to, right? He say no. He say no, right? So, but before he says no, what? The ecclesiastical power has to be first represented. So right here you see the scene of Moses, right? And Moses and Aaron when they went up before Pharaoh, right? And they had the rod. Now this is very important because we're gonna get into this. But they had the rod, right? Now the rod, what, turned into a serpent. Moses' rod turned into a serpent, right? And then Pharaoh, they had their rods and they did the same thing. They both turned into serpent. But Moses' rod ate Pharaoh's rod. You feel what I'm saying? So that right there was an expression that the ecclesiastical power that I am coming in to self-govern myself is of higher authority than what you have basically put me in bondage to. You feel what I'm saying? That was a statement right there. That was an expression of the ecclesiastical power, saying that my God, right, has ordained me and ordained me under rulership of him for all governments of my tribe and not under you. And this right here, my rod eating your rod, or my serpent eating your serpent, is showing you that this is of higher audience than you, right? Which they got to respect, right? But then they what? They get what? Stubborn, and they don't want to respect it, and they say no. Then what? Bam. So they don't want to respect that international, you know what I'm saying, declaration of sovereignty. Then they got to do what? Then they go to universal. You feel what I'm saying? Then the Most High step in. You feel what I'm saying? I say, oh, okay. You don't want to accept my ecclesiastical declaration of power over my tribe. Then they do what? They take the same rods, strike the water, bam, strike the air and the dust. You feel what I'm saying? Creating the plagues of Egypt. That's when the Most High tear that joker down. Because when you think about it, when I look at this SF81, you know what I'm saying? I'm just building with your fam, but real talk. When I look at that SF181 form, that form is like a non-verbal let me go. You feel what I'm saying? From basically the slave chattel and the title that you basically up under that keep you as a second-class citizen. You know what I'm saying? Make it very hard for you to deal in commerce and business, right? When you look at it, it's like a non-verbal let me go, right? You know when you say let me go, what happens? Pharaoh says no, right? When he says no, see, the Most High say, oh. Then when the Most High say, oh, then this whoa. You feel what I'm saying? Then that's when the Most High step in and bring that bit down, because what is happening is my folks have served their bondage, right? They have served their bondage. They have risen themselves, right, in sovereignty and made an ecclesiastical claim to a right to self-govern themselves under divine rulership as a tribe of a Mosaic law. You feel what I'm saying? Given by the Most High God, and you not respecting that. Now universal courts got to step in. You feel what I'm saying? Because understand something. Why do you think we're looking at that area and talking about what? Searching and going and getting our ancestors what? Artifacts, right? That's left for us to do what? To prove our ecclesiastical claim. Because guess what? That gold, they can't touch it. They die, right? Huh? Motherfuckers died, they got sick, all kind of stuff, right? They can't touch it. If you walk up there as a sovereign and get that, that's an ecclesiastical claim to your right to self-govern yourself, because you can now say, hey, look, you feel what I'm saying? My rod basically just ate your rod. You feel what I'm saying? Because now I was able to what? I was able to go in there and retrieve my ancestors' gold. You feel what I'm saying? Their artifacts say such and such. I would. You know what I'm saying? You couldn't do that. So, you know what I'm saying? That will let you know that the audience and the sovereignty and my proclamation to liberty and self-governance is of an ecclesiastical power, because you know this was by divine right that I was able to even attain these things, right? Because they tell you, man, the ancestors love gold tablets with the history on that. So I'm just saying, like, just say for example, you, right? Because think about it, Moses was what? A sovereign voice, a sovereign political voice for the Hebrews, right? Even though he was under an Egyptian status, right? But that's because, think about this though, the Most High had to do it like that and send Moses, right, through the water, you know what I'm saying? So that can take place because what? The Egyptians was the Hebrews was a stranger in the land of Egypt. But now these people have came into your land and have called and took your status. So now you got to take your status back. You feel? It ain't like you're claiming Pharaoh's status anymore. No. Or it got to be no, you're claiming your status back. Because it ain't got nothing to do with skin color. It got everything to do with status. Right? So, you know what I'm saying? So then you, as a sovereign political voice for the children of Israel, say, hey, you know what I'm saying? Let me go. We have the divine right of self-governance through ecclesiastical law, because of look, they already found Decalogue stones with the Ten Commandments on this land. So look, you feel what I'm saying? This is by divine order. I'm just building, you know what I'm saying? Because we got to think about stuff like that. Why have our ancestors done that? And why have we been looking at a land with the artifacts to do what? They must be there to what? To support our ecclesiastical claim, so we can be what? Like I say, it's there to unite the tribes, right? To unite the tribes. Okay then. So they got, you know what I'm saying? You feel what I'm saying? We're just building and reasoning. You know, I'm just kind of thinking about this stuff with y'all. That's why we just riding out. But let's continue to go on. You know what I'm saying, with the lesson.
For most people, their history. They created a concept called canon law. Sounds funny because cannons normally you think of ships and pirate ships, but the word canon actually means rule, standard, norm, rod, bar. It means rule of law. The word canon actually means rule, standard, norm, rod, bar. It means rule of law. In fact, canon law is a fancy way of saying rule of law. And if you go into any of the courts or any of the laws in any Western country, they all say that they run by rule of law, don't they?
Okay, so we see, you know what I'm saying, what he gave us for canon law, right? One of the definitions, right, was rod, right? Canon law, dealing with ecclesiastical law, right? Which is what? Straight rule, code, standard, or measure, right? Get the etymology. Right? Clergymen living under a rule. You know, a clergyman is like a church official, right? In ecclesiastical use pertaining to a canon. Okay, measuring line, rule, reed, right? Remember to read. Okay, canon, any straight rod or bar, rule, excellent. Okay, now that's important because when we go to Ezekiel chapter 20, right, the Lord will restore Israel. Let's see what he tells us. He said, as I live, saith the Lord God, surely with a mighty hand and a stretched out arm and with fury poured out will I rule over you, right? Okay. He say, and I will bring you out from the people, and I will gather you out of the countries wherein ye are scattered, with a mighty hand, and with a stretched out arm, and with the fury poured out. He said, I will bring you into the wilderness of the people, and there will I plead with you face to face. right? So there, right? Okay. Let's keep going. He said, like as I pleaded with your fathers in the wilderness of the land of Egypt, so will I plead with you, thus saith the Lord, right? And I will cause you to pass under the rod. Now, and I will bring you into the bond of the covenant, right? So understand what he's telling us, right? He's going to bring us back into ecclesiastical law, right? Back into law. The rod is the what? Well, right? The canon. Canon law is what? Ecclesiastical jurisdiction, right? Ecclesiastical law. A body of laws or regulations made by ecclesiastical authority. When you look at ecclesiastical authority, you get what? Let me see. No, go back to canon law. We'll go to, let me find it. Okay, so when you go to theocracy and ecclesiocracy, right? And on the synopsis, it tells you what? Hence, theocracy is the what? Is rule of God, right? So, the Most High telling you in Ezekiel that what? I will bring you under the rod, right? And I will do what? Will rule over you, right? So that's how he's establishing the fact that he's going to bring you back under canon in the ecclesiastical law, right? And you will have divine rulership and a moral system of governance, which is the what? The covenant, right? And you will have your kingdom set up in rulership under, you know what I'm saying, the Most High. So he's establishing ecclesiastical law right there, right? So now what then has to happen is Pharaoh has to respect that, right? You know what I'm saying? So let's keep building though. Let's keep building.
The laws in any Western country, they all say that they run by rule of law, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
So what this group said was, we're going to write a series of laws, and we're going to say these are the laws of all laws. These are the foundation of all laws. Now, if no one argues against this, and if no one presents a competing idea, then this, in fact, then default becomes the rule of law of the world. And that's exactly what they did. And they updated, the last version they updated was in 1983.
And the Vatican did this in the 11th century.
Yes, they started doing this in the 11th century. So,
well, excuse me, where did they get off of saying that they were the ones who were going to create the rule of law? They just made that up?
Yes, they did.
Okay.
But here's the thing about a claim. You can go in, and this happened in the gold rush. People went into the new land, the new frontier, and they claimed huge tracts of land for themselves. Remember all the great ranches of Texas, yeah?
Yes.
Now, that wasn't their land. There were people living on the land. They just made a claim. And then what they did in many parts of the new frontier, as you know better than I, in order to reinforce their claim, they then virtually paid the army to be a militia force to enforce their claim. So if there was a native population, an indigenous population, that didn't like this idea that they'd suddenly become the chattel of a new rancher, then the army would come. So if there was a native population, an indigenous population, that didn't like this idea that they'd suddenly become the chattel of a new rancher, then the army would come in and clean up the mess. And that's effectively what happened in huge tracts of land throughout the states. So there's an example that, you know, it's easy to make a claim, and if one has the power of a gun with you, then it's easy to support that claim. But the problems for the Indigenous is that they didn't counter the claim in a form that got rid of the bad idea. Because what they didn't say is, no, we But the problems for the Indigenous is that they didn't counter the claim in a form that got rid of the bad idea. Because what they didn't say is, no, we have already staked out this land. Here are our meets and our bounds, our terrain, and you have now trespassed on our property. They didn't say that. What they said was, no one owns the land. We are merely stewards of the land, and of course they went the way of the Cathars.
Oh, I see. So if they would have played within the system that they did not understand, but who was there to say, yes, you're right, Indigenous people, these meets and bounds? Was there anybody there, just a judge or some kind of a third party to say, yes, you're right, and these people that are invading you are wrong?
Well, the divine is a judge. So, for example, let's come back to canon law. The last time anyone challenged the Vatican effectively on their outrageous claims was over 492 years ago, and there was a man by the name of Martin Luther. For over almost 500 years it's been since anyone has challenged them forensically and legally on their outrageous claims. But no one, not even Martin Luther, prepared a full canon law competition to the Vatican to say, look, you can't defeat an idea by walking away. The only way to defeat a bad idea is to consume it.
Consume it?
And to say, look, you can't defeat an idea by walking away. The only way to defeat a bad idea is to consume it.
Consume it?
Consume it.
By understanding every integral part of it and saying, well, prove that?
Correct.
I see. Not fighting it, but looking at it and saying, what is that about?
Well, this is the essence of competition to the Vatican to say, look, you can't defeat an idea by walking away. The only way to defeat a bad idea is to consume it.
Consume it?
Consume it.
By understanding every integral part of it and saying, well, prove that?
Correct.
I see. Not fighting it, but looking at it and saying, what is that about?
Well, this is the essence of Qi in the martial arts of Korea and China and the Shaolin. They ultimately have to show honor, or their whole system is in complete dishonor. But what I'm saying is, when people look at this, don't think that this is a magic bullet that you write to your registrar and the registrar says, I'm terribly sorry, here's your beneficial entitlement at birth. We didn't mean to take all this energy from you. It's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But what you have done is you have officially lodged a perfected claim of right. And what that then means is no one in their system then can presume your consent. No one in their system can presume when they take something from you that you are agreeing to it anymore.
Because you have that document that you sent them, a copy of it?
That's right, because you have a copy of that and you have recorded it and you've had it registered and you are now moving forward on that. And when they don't respond, you'll be following up with a dishonor. And when you are prepared to defend your claim of right, then that is when you've perfected your claim of right. When you're prepared to defend who and what you are,
then you've started to perfect your claim of right.
And how is that done?
That's done by a deed of ecclesiastical dishonour. Now, if you go back to the principle, and this is absolute fundamental to property law right throughout the world, if property ultimately all comes from the divine, and that's exactly how the system is based, it all comes from the divine, and that an agent claims it, so that's why the Vatican is so important, then if an officer that is dealing with the conveyance of property is in dishonour, then that means they are unable to operate in ecclesiastical space and convey property. They are not supposed to perform any duties. So dishonour is an extremely important issue, even if the present system doesn't really remember or understand why it's important.
So, and the officers get in dishonour when they don't respond to you?
Correct, when they don't act in their role. You see, they have duties and obligations, which for years now have been completely ignored.
Right.
But their obligations in recognising what they're doing, whether they are conveying $50 billion or $50, it doesn't matter. It's the principle that matters. Now, ultimately, what a officer does that outrageously ignores dishonour and continues is that they effectively excommunicate themselves from their ecclesiastical authority. And whether lawyers today realise it or judges realise it, it is embedded in their very law that if they persist, then they have lost all right. It means if a judge has sentenced someone, that sentence is null and void. On appeal, it must be thrown out. It means any conveyance is null and void. If they've sold your home, it's invalid. On appeal, it can be thrown out. And it will be thrown out because if they act in dishonour and they continue to act in dishonour, then they've lost the very thing that makes what they're doing lawful.
I would assume that
people are waking up to exactly what this is. The significance of an ecclesiastical deed isn't because we created it. It's because it represents the root foundation of their own legal system. So when they dishonour it, they are pulling down their own temple. It's because it represents the root foundation of their own legal system. So when they dishonour it, they are pulling down their own temple.
So, do we not always, though, have to pay for what we have, right?
Yes.
Doesn't always have to be an exchange somehow. So, in the way of foreclosures, if people don't pay the note, I mean, there's some kind of karmic thing going on there. Why should people get the home without paying for it?
Well, there is a concept that's been around for a long, long time called promised land. It's been there in the Bible for a while, yes?
Mm-hmm.
And the promised land didn't say that you wake up one day and someone's going to give you a fully furnished home and an acre block and there you go.
Mm-hmm.
It was simply saying that you have a right. And the right is that you have the right to possession of some space in which to make your domicile. Yeah?
A divine right? A divine right?
A divine right.
But would we not have to pay for that in some way?
Exactly. It doesn't mean that you are free then to go off and take someone's home
mm-hmm.
or break into someone's home and claim it as yours, or just sit around waiting for someone to give it to you. What it separates is we have a right to own a home, to have a home, and we have a right to protect our home. Now, if we are delinquent in our obligations, there needs to be a separation between performing those obligations and our rights. And this is what has been the failure.
Okay, so coming back and once again piecing all this information together, you see what? Us, right, as an indigenous, autochthonous tribe of people, right, having a divine right to govern ourselves as a tribe under Mosaic law, under the rulership of the Most High God, have an ecclesiastical claim to self-governance, right? Okay. The Most High tells us in the end days he will do what? He will pass us under the rod, under the canon, under the ecclesiastical law, and rule over this. Rule over us. Okay? So then that ecclesiastical claim has to be supported by the divine, either the divine or whatever it is, you know what I'm saying, that could substantiate your claim to divine rulership as a kingdom, right? Hence, our ancestors leaving gold and artifacts on the ark with the law, you feel what I'm saying? To substantiate our ecclesiastical claim to self-government as a tribe under the covenant. You feel what I'm saying? Now, like I say, what? Pharaoh, right? King of bondage, right? Has to do what? Respect the ecclesiastical law, because what? He is built on an ecclesiastical claim of his divine rulership, right? Under God, one nation under God. Okay, in the ancient time, he was Pharaoh, he was the God king, a descendant of the God. Establish him in ecclesiastical law, or theocracy, or ecclesiocracy, or with something in between. You see what I'm saying? But now, in modern days, you got what? Someone who has taken the scriptures, and declared Christianity, right, as the sovereign doctrine or religion, or however you want to look at it, and have came on your land and have swapped places with you, right, based on an ecclesiastical claim. So now when you come back into so it's like what it all boils down to, you know what I'm saying, is who's going to be the sovereign political voice to speak up for you, because you are recorded as a politically lazy people. You feel what I'm saying? Like I say in this one, you feel what I'm saying? Moses was sovereign under his classification as an Egyptian, although he was Hebrew. But understand this, that's because what? The Hebrews was in a stranger's land. But now they are on your land. So now they have taken the rulership title, and you claim that, right? That rulership, to claim it back. You feel what I'm saying? Because it's not about, it's not about color. You feel what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? You look at the words and see that, but now I guess all of a sudden, etymology is, you know what I'm saying, is now etymology. But I'm gonna tell you how my folk, you feel what I'm saying? They keep themselves in the same loop because they're not thinking. Okay, they say in the same breath, the etymology is etymology, which is the white man's etymology. But damn, shit, I thought Edom meant red. So how the fuck is he the white man? You know what you're doing though? I'm gonna show you what you're doing.
Then you got all your law cases. So you can see clearly it's a legal status. So what happens when you call that European white man? You just called him sovereign and transferred your estate to him as fofer.
See what I'm saying? See, that's the thing. How we gonna say, you know what I'm saying, that the etymology goes back to Edom, and call it the white man's etymology if Edom means red? Then it can't be talking about white. It can't be talking about the skin color. It's a legal status. You giving him divine rulership right there every time you call him that. because he's not that. Nowhere is he called that. You feel what I'm saying? It's not even referring to that. You know, he's leprous. It's not even referring to thing. It's referring to status that the Bible gives you as a cedar in Lebanon, a tree of whiteness, one who sprang out of the ground in moral purity and rulership of the land that you sprang out of, right? So now when you come to the courts with your ancestors' artifact, that's to support your ecclesiastical claim. Just like when Moses came back with the rod, right, with the canon, with the ecclesiastical law, it ate Pharaoh's snake, showing him that my divine rulership, you know what I'm saying, this ecclesiastical claim of mine is of higher audience than your oppressive government. You see what I'm saying? So you got to respect that. Then when he doesn't, that's when the Most High tear that joker down, right? Because you're not respecting my law, you feel me, and my rulership, right? So when you go to these courts or whatnot, or however, you feel what I'm saying, and expressing ecclesiastical claim to power, and let's say you have your ancestors' artifact with you, that ecclesiastical claim is supported by the fact that you was able to obtain these artifacts, showing that you are descendants, and that you have that divine right to tribal self-government through this particular ecclesiastical claim. They have to respect that. Then when they don't, family, that's when the Most High come and tear this joker down, right? Because we're talking about what? Trade, commerce, property, right? Assyrian law, what? Maritime law, the law of the sea, right? They trading you on property as the commerce, right? Now you are a second-class citizen. You feel what I'm saying? In this commerce, but what the Bible tell you, when you rise, guess what they're gonna be doing? They're gonna be bringing what? Your people to you on ships as an offering. You feel what I'm saying? So understand that. Like Brother Ed was saying with the Pirates of the Caribbean, they're coming to take back the sea, right? They coming to take back the sea. When let's dig on something real. Okay, so the Most High say what? That they gonna get the ships of Tarshish. We dealing with sea commerce, right? Property, the people, right? Okay, and bring these that was once property, and slaves, you know, second class based upon commerce and trade and maritime law, are now what being brought as an offer to the Most High God, who ruleth, right, over the nation of Israel, right? An offering, right? Offering, the presenting of something to a deity, right? A thing so presented. Okay, so you know what I'm saying? Dealing with showing you that when the Most High rule over you in this ecclesiastical manner, right? That you didn't, like they say, take over. That's what they scared of. That's what they fearing, right? The fact that you take over that maritime law, that Assyrian law, and then become the power of the trade and commerce and things of that nature. And you then redeem the property, right, that's being traded in commerce, and you bring it back into you, unto you as an offering unto the power that ruleth over you. Okay, so that's why when you go back, right, to Ecclesiastic, the etymology, right, you see Ecclesiasticus, right, dealing with this speaker or assembly or preacher, right? Remember that? Now let's go to the scriptures and go to the wisdom of Solomon, because the wisdom of Solomon is also called what? Ecclesiasticus. Okay, so you can go, and I'm not even sure. I should have got the chapter for y'all. Excuse me a minute, fam. I done messed up. Hold on. Alright, let's get the chapter for y'all. This gotta be chapter 26. Chapter 26, verse 5, right? We're dealing with Ecclesiasticus, right? Ecclesiasticus, dealing with what? Ecclesiastic from Latin, right? Greek, an assembly of church, right? Speaker of assembly or church, preacher, right? This can be validated by when you go to the Bible and go to Ecclesiastes, right, in the regular King James. Go to chapter 7. Go to about verse 28. I think it is. Say, behold, this have I found, said the preacher, seeking by once at a time to find an account. Right? So behold, this have I found, right, says the preacher, right? This ecclesiastical administrator right here. You feel me? So that, right, that ecclesiastical administrator, right, being Solomon, right, who did rule with God because he even built the temple for the Most High to dwell with him, right? So we know he was in divine rulership under ecclesiastical law. Now, but Jacob, we are Jacob, right, which means to rule with power, right? Israel, prince of power, we rule with God. That is ecclesiastical power. We are established under ecclesiastical law. So that person then, Solomon writes this ecclesiastical, right? Now they're perpetrating in this position under ecclesiastical law through this very manuscript, these scriptures, right? So then take into account how they, as the preacher or the pope, right, or the ecclesiastical administrator, would then use these same moral principles, right? Okay, check out what it says. He says, there be three things that my heart feareth, right? 5. Now we know that they fear what? The number one thing they fear is what? Tribes, right? Alright. It said, there be three things that my heart feareth, and for the fourth I was sore afraid. I was sore afraid. It said the slander of a city. So the slander of a city is one, right? That this ecclesiastical administrator is afraid of. Right? Now think about that, right? Think about the ecclesiastical administrators that hold office over you, right? That hold that divine religious position over you in government, right? The slander of a city, right? What? Human trafficking of righteous property. You feel what I'm saying? However, I don't know, just saying. And we'll keep going. This is the most important part, though. The gathering together of an unruly multitude. So this ecclesiastical administrator is afraid of the gathering together of an unruly multitude, which is why whenever black or cattle run around this joker wild and they're gathering together, it's always deemed as what? An unruly multitude. Police come in there and shut that joker down. You feel what I'm saying? But now if you have proclaimed, right, it's status correction, meaning somebody classifies something wrong, nigga, I'm telling you, nigga, this is what I'm to be called. You feel what I'm saying? Nigga, this is my status. Because it don't matter about what, you know what I'm saying, to be called, but understand something, man. That it ain't just about a label when you're called something. You feel me? If I call you a football player, that's because what? You play football. You feel what I'm saying? If I call you a basketball player, nigga, that's because you on the court, dribbling the basketball, shooting that joker, you feel me? In an organized sport. You feel what I'm saying? That's why Christ say what? I came in the name, right? The name, right? That it ain't about what he was called. It ain't that he bear the name that the Most High was called. No, he came in the attributes, the characteristics. You feel what I'm saying? Like I said, if I call you a football player, that's because you play football. You feel what I'm saying? If I call you a football player, I'm not gonna give you a basketball. So if I am to be called a Tokchan, a cedar of Lebanon, a first-class citizen on my own land, nigga, don't be treating me like a second-class citizen. You feel what I'm saying? That's the power behind being called something. Because you got to be those characteristics and those attributes. It ain't just about a label. You feel what I'm saying? So understand, when you proclaim or establish the correct label, and then you have a federal or internationally recognized right to gather and establish yourself under ecclesiastical law, that means that you have divine rulership and a set of morals, i.e. Mosaic law, in place, right? That would not classify you as an unruly multitude, right?
what we're doing is everything people do must be responsible. You must approach any court matter responsibly and honourably. That's first and foremost. But recognise what they do exceeds their authority and what they're doing is wrong. And two wrongs don't make a right.
What about the So when a claim is unrebutted, it sticks.
That's right. It works both ways. And you've probably heard the statement, one who does not assert their rights has none.
So when a claim is unrebutted, it sticks.
That's right. It works both ways. And you've probably heard the statement, one who does not assert their rights has none.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it goes the other way as well.
They called me from England last year, because I talk to people from around the world. When you're national, people from other countries talk to you. They won't talk to Negroes. I'm not saying that as a negative, because they can't be trusted, because they know that anybody that'll betray their own blood will betray them. So it here is free white persons. You see this? So free white persons, includes all European Jews more or less intermixed. If they're not mixed, they can't be free white people. Meaning if they ain't got melanin in them, can't be free white people. It's a legal status. It includes all European Jews more or less intermixed with peoples of Celtic, Scandinavian, Teutonic, Iberian, Latin, Greek, and Slavic descent. Free white persons includes Magyars, Lapps and Finns, and the Basque and Albanians. Free white persons includes the mixed Latin, Celtic, Iberian, and Moorish inhabitants of Spain and Portugal, the mixed Greek, Latin, and Phoenicians, and North African inhabitants of Sicily. North Africans are white people. Do you understand? Phoenicians are white people. Moors are white people. It's a legal status. So, all right, so Iberian and Moorish inhabitants of Spain and Portugal, the mixed Greek and Latin, Phoenician, and North African inhabitants of Sicily, and the mixed Slav and Tartar inhabitants of South Russia. Free white persons does not mean Caucasian race. Russia. Free white persons does not mean Caucasian race. Can y'all repeat this, please? Who can read? Who can read? Who can read? Can you read? All right, let's do this together, y'all. It means free white persons. Free white persons, come on, y'all, does not mean Caucasian race. Free white persons does not mean Aryan.
Okay, man. So, with all that being said, what we got to ask ourselves is, if these people ain't sprang from the soil in which we inhabit in moral purity or in whiteness as a cedar in Lebanon, a tree of righteousness in which the Lord hath planted, then why are we giving them that status? And why are we not claiming that for ourselves if that's what we are? You feel what I'm saying? Because, you know what I'm saying? Just think about that, man. Like, really. Okay, because we know the term is what? It's not dealing with skin color. You feel me? It's not dealing with that. You feel me? It's not dealing to a nation. No nation called white. You feel what I'm saying? It's dealing with what? Purity, honorable, right? You have to be honorable in law. Because you have what? You disobeyed the covenant. You dishonored, right, your ecclesiastical claim to power, right? Now they finna get their ass tore up because of it. Cause think about that now. Because if you would have never disobeyed and did what you did, they would have never had the power to come against you, right? So by you dishonoring your covenant or your religious law, right, that didn't cause for these people to come over here, establish themselves, and plant themselves, and call themselves white, right, into the promised land, disobeying the Most High God's covenant and land, his lot inheritance. You feel what I'm saying? All because you dishonored a covenant. So now, right, what you have to do is you have to represent yourself as honorable. Because understand something, okay, right? When you're dealing with this black and white stuff, everybody want to holler checkerboard, checkerboard, check. It seems like the most thing, you know what I'm saying, that you is oh, there's this checkerboard, you know, this Masonic checkerboard, you're still on the checkerboard, but nobody's really talking about how the game checker is really being played. You feel what I'm saying? Because it's dropped in the game. You know, I was building with my brother Winifred about this, man. Like, you know what I'm saying? I hadn't dropped this on, but like I thought about, like, bro, that's real. You know what I'm saying? What I was saying, because, listen, okay, black and white, right? The checkerboard, right? It's the checkerboard, black and white. But understand something, right? How is the game played? Understand, you got one person or one whatever on one side, and then you got one on another. So one is on black or one is on white, right? So then, you know what I'm saying, one is on, or I'm gonna say this, one is on one side and one is on the other. Why is the intent of the game, or the purpose, that one must travel or zigzag his way across to the other side and to hijack territory where he is then given something that was taken from him? He is given that back and reestablish his sovereignty and freedom. Now he can do what? Move freely on the plane, or plane it, flat earth, right? The footstool of the Most High. He can move freely on that plane, right, and establish his freedom. Now think about that. Why must he go from one side of the checkerboard to the other to receive his divine right to rule? You feel what I'm saying? And his divine right to freedom. Like, really think about that. You know what I'm saying? That's why some people be like, you know, it's not chess. It's what they say, the game chess, not checkers. But maybe it's chess then checkers, or maybe it's checkers then chess. You feel me? Maybe you make your way to the other side and reclaim your indigenous sovereign white right to rule and freedom to navigate the plane, right? You reclaim that, right? That's checkers, right? You reclaim that, get sovereign, then bam, then now it's chess, right? Now you sovereign, now you a king, now you got your king, your queen, your crook, your pawn, you feel me? Now you got your army, then you go out, get established and go out and take shit. You feel what I'm saying? Or be a kingdom again. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying, I'm just building, but just think about that. You feel what I'm saying? Because our people will be so quick to shoot something down when not really looking deeply into it and understanding something. You feel what I'm saying? Who is going to be that Moses, right? Who is going to be that sovereign, right, honorable political voice, right, to establish that ecclesiastical power for us as the children of Israel to Pharaoh? You feel what I'm saying? So don't be quick to stop the brothers and sisters from taking this as far as they can go, establishing their honorable status in law, because they may have to be that voice, right, that go and make our ecclesiastical claim to self-governance, right, because we have a right to that, right, especially if it's under the Most High law. And then when they deny that, that's when it get real. You feel what I'm saying? We've been digging on this area, right, haven't we? Our folks got what we need to establish our ecclesiastical claim. That's what we've been looking at. Because once we establish ourselves sovereign and as a tribe, now we're federally recognized as a tribe. With that ecclesiastical claim, that's just add icing to the cake. Okay, cool. Now we already see them as a tribe as trying to be recognized or individual, you know what I'm saying, separate. Now they have the ecclesiastical right or claim to power to govern themselves under divine law as a tribe, stemming from Mosaic law and the covenant, right? Most High say he's going to bring you back into what? The rod, under canon law, under ecclesiastical law. So who is going to be that white, honorable, sovereign status to go up to Pharaoh and have them actually hear, you know what I'm saying, you have a standing in law for them to hear you proclaim our ecclesiastical right as a tribe to have self-governance. So we make our way up out of here. That's how we might have to do it. So just keep digging, keep looking, and don't be so quick, right, to crucify your prophet or your way to salvation or your proclamation of liberty. Shalom, family.